Hi all. Uh, I'm Lynn, John Manuelian. Everybody knows me as Lynn. I made the Haunted Cruise Pinball, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. Some of the development design ideas that I had, some of the things that I threw away that I had, and some of the decisions I made to make it what it is today. I'm not going to go through the whole history. We'll be here for 10 hours, but I'm going to go through kind of like the prehistory stuff that a lot of people don't know about because it's been lost to time on the internet. The very first image I posted of this thing back in 2009, 2008 was on the Kayla forums, back before Pinball Homebrew was really a thing. And I was one of those crazy guys who decided, hey, I made visual pinball stuff. I wrote a pinball game for PS3. I might as well make a real thing. And well, here I am now, a lot poorer, but having a lot more fun. So I can only show a little bit of the schematic, but this is the current schematic of Haunter Cruise, so you can kind of get an idea what it is now when I go back to the prehistory to show you where it came from. And you can see the prehistory images you're going to see still are very similar to what it is today. It's just some things wiggled around a little bit. I'll try and scroll up a little as best I can. Again, there's only so much that this screen can show at a time. So there's three magnets in the middle, couple ramps coming down to your plungers, and there's a whole lot of stuff up here, but you have an upper table with a whole bunch of ramps and paths and subways every which way. Come down a little bit. You don't need to see the feet. Jet bumpers underneath the main table. It's always been that way. Secondary table, or I'm sorry, underneath the secondary table. The secondary table always was up this way, always had a ramp on the right side, always had pathways on the left, and always had targets in the middle. So let's go back in time for a second to one of the very first images I ever posted, which I believe is in old design. Yeah, here we go. Zoom in a little bit. So it's hard to see, but this is the original sketch I made back in 2008, 2009 of Haunted Cruise. Still has a secondary table. Still has jet bumpers underneath the table. You can't see it because I didn't draw through it. It still has ramps coming off the left. Still has targets in the middle. Still has a ramp kind of coming up to the right. It's all very similar, but over the years, as I've learned more nuances of the design and as I've created more of these whitewoods, I think I made like 10 different whitewoods for this thing over the years. I was able to add more targets, tweak things around, realize this ramp is too far up, and what the hell is this loop around that doesn't do anything, and all these other little things. Let's see. I believe, is this? Yeah, so here's one of the very first whitewoods I made. A long, long time ago, a handy plank from Home Depot, one of the really cheap, like at the time it was $10 one. It wasn't even the sanded plywood. Some aluminum rail that I kind of made and cut, and a whole lot of parts from Blackjack. I picked up a Blackjack game, a Bally Blackjack. It didn't work. I only took the play field. I left the cabinet for the guy to just do whatever he wanted. Stripped it down, and that's where I got the flippers and the jets. And as I said, jets underneath the secondary playfield. Can I go left and right on this? No. And here is the one with the secondary playfield. Very similar shape. The ramp is still coming off from the right. The plunger lane originally went underneath into the jets. And it was like that up until 2 years ago, when people complained they couldn't get up to the secondary playfield because the ramp was too difficult to hit at the time. And people still complained even after I changed it, so I made another access there. Still have a hole on the left that's now a scoop on the current playfield. It's hard to see, but I have some pencil sketches up at the top. I've got a hole at the top that dropped down, and I still have a hole at the top that drops down. So not a whole lot has changed. It's just kind of got redefined as time went on through play testing and through just tweaking it to try and add a little bit more. Because there's not a lot to shoot on this table, to be honest. Right here, you have some jets, you have a hole here with the subway. You have left orbit, which also went to the hole to the subway, and a couple targets on the top and a couple targets on the side. That's fine. You have to start somewhere, right? Uh, and once you know what the layout is that you kind of want, then you can continue. Yeah.
Did I miss? Did you have a theme in mind at this point?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. That's a very good question. So back at this point, no. Here, as I said, this is the first sketch I made. I wanted it to be a haunted cruise back at this time. Cruise ship has a main mezzanine with all kinds of shops and things and the piano in the center, and that was there for the longest time. It has an upper deck. You can see kind of wine glasses here. That was going to be like a tiki bar type of thing. Smokestacks for the top of the ship. And the sides are, the stairways and ways to people's rooms. It was always going to be like that. And because I wanted it to be like a ship, that's what dictated the upper playfield. That's what dictated how the lower playfield was going to be like. Now, it didn't necessarily mean I needed such a huge playfield. And at the time, I also had never played Black Knight or any of those because I was very green with pinball. Now I know it's similar to Black Knight, which is fine. There's a reason that game's a lot of fun. But that's why the game is shaped the way it is, because I wanted an upper deck and a lower deck, which it's still kind of represented there. Now the upper deck is augmented, so I can have different dressings on it, but I still have an augmented mode that is dressed as an upper deck that you can fall off the ship and splash into the water, just like the original game. So, there you go. Thank you. So that drawing turned into this. This is all hand cut with jigsaws and all kinds of who knows whatever I had in my shop at the time. You can see a little bit of my garage from a long time ago. I'm sorry. What? No, the flippers are always. Well, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at this time, so the flippers were kind of where I thought they needed to be. It doesn't necessarily mean that's correct. It worked enough, and I knew it would play well because I hooked high power directly to the flippers through button switches because that's super safe. And you got to do it somehow, right? And here you go. Here's the underneath the cabinet where everything's just kind of hooked into each other. with your big block at the bottom directly into everything through flippers and yeah. Needless to say, I'm the only one who really played it because I didn't want anyone else to touch it. But it worked. It got the point across. Even I think this guy at one point, I have the switch directly. It's the a saucer. No, it's a slingshot. It's just switch directly plugged into the thing, just like EMs, more or less. I had a scoop or a saucer. Yeah, it was a saucer from Blackjack that I also hooked in where you press the button, it just kicks the thing out. I took that out early on. There was no place for it, really. So that's the underside of the playfield. Also, for those of you who might be interested, this was a supersonic cabinet. All right, so here's something neat. About 3-4 years in, I wanted to add a Pepper's Ghost effect to the thing. And I'm a big fan of Disney. Disney uses Pepper's Ghost for all their haunted stuff. And I was trying to figure out how can I add that to the table. And then I thought to myself, oh, hey, well, what Disney does, they have the ghosts behind the doom buggies kind of shining forward with lights. So that's exactly what I did here. So in this picture, you can kind of sort of see Jigglypuff right there. Inside the arch, I have a compartment with a light shining brightly underneath the arch, reflecting on a piece of acrylic. And I had it on both sides of the arch, one shining up above this section and one shining up on the stairs for ghosts to kind of go up the stairs. And it worked. And I know I could have refined it to make it better, but that's when I kind of said, wait, Pinball 2000 did this, why can't I just use that? So that's when I kind of shifted over to the whole Pinball 2000 reflection type of thing. But this was one of the first designs of it with physical objects that were going to be physical toys inside of the arch, moving around, dancing around with lights shining on them, reflecting up. I think I have another picture of that. Is that what this is? Yeah, all right. Here's the view from the playfield into the arch. So it's a super white blinding light shining out onto the piece of acrylic. And when the room is dark, you can see it pretty well. Now, when the little Jigglypuff thing that I put in there wasn't really the right colors or anything for it. You really need to have super saturated colors so it reflects really well. But it was at least proof of concept to make this work. So those are the really ancient images of this game that I have from years gone past. Everything you're going to see from now on is going to be more the closer of the real thing. So now every good game tends to have a foam core model. Haunted Cruise is no different. What is the earliest foam core that I have here? Yeah, so these are in 2013, as listed in here. I tried to put dates with all of my pictures so I would know what's going on. And I guess 323 or 313 is going to be the earliest. Yeah, this is when I was first starting to foam core the thing. I printed up a schematic from Staples. I also started designing this in SolidWorks itself at this point. So I printed up a design, the schematic from Staples. I got a whole bunch of foam core from Michaels. I taped them together to make the elongated playfields and cut them all down. And I just started placing things around. On this model, I have 3 switches here for coins. There's only 2 in the final because I had, with this 3rd switch right over here, the ramp was too thin. You couldn't hit it. You had to be like super perfect, and that's no good if you need to get that to the upper playfield. And that was the only way to the upper playfield in this design. So I widened that up, and I only found that out after I put it all together, shot it, and realized, oh, so I took the target out, made the ramp a little wider, and drilled some more holes in the whitewood. Also, you can see I have the entryway into the jet bumper still, which with the current game, if you look over in the corner, like in that right orbit, you can see it was there until recently, and there's a little cutout on that guide. And it just goes right over it now with the new ramp. This target is lower than it is currently, and everything else is kind of sort of the same. I have targets in the back. The current version doesn't use targets. The current version uses a rubber with a little leaf switch, because you're never going to see it. They both do the same thing. Why waste the money on it when a leaf switch is $5 and the targets are $20 to get? Yeah, so this is the very first version of the foam core, and I have a whole lot of images of this thing. I won't show every one of them, but this is this one. Oh, I'm just playing around with pegs and positions of things, and I think I took this picture for sizing to show, hey, this is how I'm placing these suckers. And way over here at 517, this is going to be more of the final one. Yeah, so this is without the upper playfield on top. And this whole jet area has not changed since 2013. It works great. So why change it? This target right here works great. I haven't changed it. What has changed is this section right over here. I noticed that when you come out the jets and bounce, it was going straight in the drain. And just by moving this target wider out, not in, but wider out, it fixed the problem. And you wouldn't think that. You'd think you want to make it narrower so it bounces, but through a trial and error, widening it up, it made it work. I think it's hitting off the side of this target just right and it works. Scoop over in the corner now instead of the hole. So this is I have a popper here and I have a scoop back here, but this scoop is covered with doors. So those of you who have played Wizard of Oz, you know those doors on the upper left playfield that open up? I was designing that long before Wizard of Oz came out because I wanted those doors to open up. And those doors eventually turned into the very first mode in the current version where you have to hit the doors a bunch of times and they open up. But the idea here is you were going to hit those doors, it was going to open up and you're going to get to a grand ballroom multi-ball of some type. because then once those doors opened up, I still had that Pepper's Ghost effect on there. That was going to have ghosts going into the door. So it was going to be a really neat little effect, but I took all that out. I couldn't figure out how to make the doors work, so I decided to get rid of it. It was also underneath the playfield. There were so many mechanisms. I couldn't fit like the motors and all the other weird things. And I also, this little dotted section right here, that's an eddy switch. So that needed a whole like mechanism or like a whole set of boards and whatnot under there. So it was just getting a little too much, especially with the subway that kind of tried to go underneath the whole thing. Some of you might recognize this footprint. This is the footprint for the trough on Whitewater. Yeah, for the popper. So that game still kind of has half of it. It's unobtainium, so I could never put it there. But it just has the popper section of it. I originally wanted to lock 3 balls there, like physically lock 3 balls there, and then pop it out during the multi-ball. Never happened because I couldn't get the mech. Even at this point in time, 2013, I got the 3 magnets right at the bottom here. Right underneath. Now this portal, if you remember at the very first image I showed you, there was a piano kind of sitting on top. I was originally thinking about hovering it above, but then that would block away too many things. Underneath this portal, up until like 2 or 3 years ago, there was going to be a piano mech underneath the playfield. And you can think of it kind of like the Creature from the Black Lagoon portal to look in. And it was going to be set kind of vertical, diagonal type of thing so you could see it well. And there was going to be another Pepper's Ghost effect of a piano guy playing during certain multi-balls and modes. Ultimately, the mech was just going to be way too big and complicated, so I said, screw it. It wasn't worth it. And now I have inserts and things that kind of tell what you're doing in the game. It's, more information, which is good. But that's the portal for the piano that way back in 2009, it was still there. And I did start making that underplay. I don't think I ever took pictures of it, so I don't have it, unfortunately. But yeah, it was just going to be huge. But it did kind of work. So that's this foam core. And those are really the earliest images of this thing that I have. Everything beyond this are now going to be images that have been posted a little bit more. But yeah, I put power on this foam core to play test it, to figure it out. Because the ball doesn't roll as well on paper and foam, but you still get an idea of what it's going to do. And you get an idea of, oh, the flippers need to be facing this way, or the ramp needs to move over ever so slightly. Just a little tweaks like that to make sure that it works. That's how I knew this section worked fine. And that's how I knew this orbit was okay. Everything else I kind of took with a grain of salt again because of what it was. But I knew my ideas weren't complete bat crazy. All right. So now, after I made this foam core, I then started sketching and figuring out, well, the doors aren't going to work. So what am I going to do with that? The ramps don't kind of work very well. How am I going to rejigger all that? So that's what all these sketches here kind of depict. And it's just a whole bunch of me hand drawing things out. Like, so here's an idea where the doors and that left orbit went into the same popper way back when. This was actually before the foam core, I think. Even earlier. You can also see there were going to be 2 lanes coming out. Again, kind of like Black Knight, but I didn't know Black Knight at the time. But two lanes kind of coming out that were going to drop it. I got 3 targets over here kind of on more centered, justified, instead of on the right of the playfield now. I got a target over on the right side, which doesn't exist anymore. And these are now all drop targets at the very top with the hole going down. And then there's another hole down here that funnels down into this center piece. This still exists to this day. All right, here's some more refining of things. So I basically print up schematics, like just raw schematics, and I just do lots of pencil drawings. You can this whole section, if you look on the left side, the previous one, it was kind of fluffy, like this is kind of what I want to do. But now this one, I have gates here to prevent the ball from popping out. I have a more concrete idea of like how I want to mount the rails, like how this is going to go, the switch that's going to be here, how it's not going to like catch up the balls as they kind of come in, where the hole is going to be for accessing the upper playfield. I think, yeah, I refined this section a little bit too, the entry to the jets. And I adjusted this wire. I had a wire just going straight across, but I adjusted kind of where that went. And I still had the eddy switch under here because there were still going to be doors here. But I just didn't draw the doors. You kind of see the door shapes over here. So here it is kind of with upper playfield. This is very close to what was actually there about a year ago. The popper down in the center, which currently goes to the upper playfield, used to go all the way down to the flipper. And this ramp was a very Pat Lawler type of whooshy ramp on the upper playfield that came down and dropped into the now scoop hole, which is a layover from the original idea where there was going to be a ramp that drops you in there. These targets are now more or less where they are in the current version. They shifted over. This drop target and hole here to the underside from the upper playfield, it was like that up until a year ago. This ramp was first defined with a little more characteristic, where it's going to mount to, where the switches are going to be, if there was going to be like a one-way gate to prevent you from going back through, which I eventually decided not to add, and the curvature of the thing because I wanted an orbit, and this still has a target over on this side, which is again gone now. And the 3 targets over here. So this is getting closer and closer to the final, in quotes, design that I came up with. Here's another rendition, and this is me just playing around with like access holes, because that access hole is now a bit larger. I changed how this target is over here. I angled it instead of it being straight, thinking, oh, it can curve in and then bounce out. It's not worth it. Everything else over here is unchanged. Everything else on this side is unchanged. You can see I have the ramp here, but I just blocked off the rest. It's like a cutout. So I kind of knew where the entrance was. And this target, I moved. Yet another iteration. So this was all done over the course of about a month. Just bang, 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 bang. Just thinking, coming up with ideas, late at night, just drawing things up. Some of them were hand sketched. Some of them were, you can see I brought it in the computer and just screwed around with PaintShop Pro. Up here, you can see I'm figuring out how these posts and rubbers are going to be for the upper playfield. I originally wanted an eddy switch on the upper playfield also to detect something in the middle. I now have a portal in the upper playfield so you can see the jets just like in the current version. And really just defining like how some of the rubbers are going to kind of be. And, oh, here's another idea. So I'm really hung up on the idea that both the door, the left orbit, and the back need to go to the popper. I'm really hung up on that, trying to figure out how can they go in there without catching the balls. And the final decide was it's not going to. But just another concept of that. Also, this target moves slightly again because it can't go fully diagonal like it did in this previous one. Because that's too diagonal. That's where the other balls are going to go. So it had to shift up a little bit more. We got some rubbers here. This entry hole is really interestingly shaped now. Just slowly tweaking and modifying. And I think that's it for a lot of these other these sketches. And then I took all these things and I brought them into SolidWorks and I saw what actually fit and what actually worked, right? Which I believe I have some images of that. Yeah, so here's a whole bunch of renders. So this is 2013. Speak of the devil. This is much closer to what I currently have. Now notice all those other sketches were labeled 2013 also, and all the other foam were 2013. Something happened and it became this. That target's gone completely now. Where'd it go? I don't know. This is ever so slightly angled, but it's so loosely angled just enough for it to be kind of in there and not muck with other mechs and things. This orbit goes to that popper, that whitewater popper now for sure, and everything's kind of in the place that it needs to be. But I still have that damn third target, and I didn't realize that it's no good yet. I still have the portal for the under to see the piano man, and all kinds of weird insert locations that I was playing around with ideas and concepts of. Here it is with the start of the upper playfield. Again, taking that sketch is very, very close to what the sketch was with how these posts are laid out here and how these other posts are. Just took the sketch, I put it right on the blank that I had in SolidWorks, and I kind of dotted it out and saw what fit, what didn't fit. I don't know if it's really going to work great yet, but it at least fits. And you won't know until you really play it. Here, does this have ramp? Nope, that's another more top-down view. This one, I think, has some ramps that So this is the design that existed most of its life, right? And from 2013, 2014 up until 2021-ish. This was it. It still has those three targets. It's got the ramp defined. It's got this other top and back ramp defined. I didn't make all of the guides in the back. I kind of winged it a little bit with those at this point. But this is it. And this ramp does not go down to the flipper. It goes down into this hole. Because I still was convinced that I wanted to drop into the hole from the upper playfield. And yeah, so at the time, I thought this ramp looked really cool. This right ramp, because it kind of whooshes around and things. Yeah, that kills all momentum of the ball, and the ball can't get up. So it's now much straighter than it used to be. It took about 5 to 7 different pulls of plastic to actually get the curvature right. Because I would pull it, I would try it, didn't work right. I would shave a little bit more, do another pull, and I did that in like one day. All of those little bang, bang, and that was recently, because I really wanted this stupid thing to work right. It was an important shot. If you look closely in this right orbit, it has a little cutout for your entry ramp. The upper playfield. This was the upper playfield up until a year ago, roughly. Here's another angle of this particular design. Haunted Cruise. Okay, now this is the design that I actually built after massaging that other one, making paper ramps and all this other stuff. I decided, well, it'd be cool if this kind of went across the playfield, because it just looks visually interesting and it's fun to have like this big swoop ramp. The plunger now goes to the upper playfield. It's all one big ramp here. Ultimately, it became 2 different ramps because it's just easier to form. I have some plastics now being defined, dotted around. 2 targets finally. Hey, I must have done something. And that target is still long gone. Ignore this little design. I thought I wanted to CNC cut something and didn't look very good. And this was the playfield that was made fully a year ago, actually. And that's what it was until I got complaints saying, I can't get to the upper playfield. The ramp is hard to hit. So I changed how this whole thing kind of works. So this popper now goes to the upper playfield. I don't really have images of that, I don't think. Because this popper currently, instead of dropping down, it goes into your left flipper. Now the new design is kind of an upper orbit to the left flipper. And it adds more flow, and it just makes it more fun when you're doing combos and things. Yeah, here's the old mini playfield, just the mini playfield. And yeah, that's the history of Haunted Cruise in a nutshell with what I was drawing and designing. So along the way, I've made a whole bunch of different wiring harness also because you got to play it somehow. And I'm that kind of crazy guy who doesn't like to wire things by hand, so I create pin boards. So all my games that I have, I've made pin boards. All my an augmented pinball ARS platform has its own pin board for its main artery and everything. So in my shop, I think I have like 9 or 10 pin boards for different things, for switches and this is switches, I think. Yeah, this is switches for switches, solenoids. I used to before we used the LEDs. I had lamp pin boards and everything. So what?
What's a pin board?
What's a pin board? It's a very good question. So, a pin board makes life really easy when making a wiring harness, like super dumb easy. If you try and create a wiring harness just in time when you're making your playfield, it's gonna look like my hair in the morning. It's gonna be all over the place. It's gonna be a rat's nest. You're gonna cut the wire too long. You're gonna cut wire too short. You're going to realize this wire also needs to go over here, so you're gonna have to recut, splice, patch, vampire all over the place. And it's you more or less need to do that with your first whitewood, kinda sorta. But once you've made at least one and you have a more solid playfield design, you can kind of print up the a playfield schematic and decide, well, if these are the switches I want and these are the colors I need, how can I get the wires to there? So with this particular design, I didn't really make it in SolidWorks. I printed up the schematic, and then I used Sharpie to kind of trace where I wanted the stuff to go that made the most sense. And so down, it's hard to see in this image, but I have labeled what colors need to go to what pin. And pins are just nails. You go to Home Depot, spend, what is it, $50 for a box of nails now or something? Just get like 1-inch nails or 2-inch nails, bang them in at each point where you're going to have a target or a light or solenoid. And then you can start your run for each color at some main entry point. In my case, it's on the left side. Some people, it snakes around if you have a very long harness. And you take a wire, you wrap up and around, you just follow whatever makes sense to get to your point. And oftentimes, wires need to go to multiple points. So you can bring it to a point, loop it around, bring it to another point, loop it around, and you loop all the way around until you get to the point where it doesn't need to go anywhere else, and you just kind of wrap it around the nail. And by the end, you'll have something that looks like this. That's very easy to zip tie, very easy to like trim and add your connectors. I have Molex on all these things if you want to do that, or you can solder them on if you want to solder them on. So that's kind of a pin board in a nutshell. This pin board has 2 harnesses on it. It has the main switch harness, but it also has the opto harness, which goes from here all the way down there. And I think it has to go to here, like it has to go to the popper as well. So first I did the main green and white switch harness. I strung all the wires out here. Then I took the orange and black wires and I strung them all through where they needed to go down to the trough and to the other optos, the popper and things. Termination is for big chunks, springs. Again, Home Depot springs. You can get a bunch of them for a couple bucks. The springs are attached by little L brackets. Home Depot, a couple bucks. The whole thing is mounted on particle board, to $10 at Home Depot. So, I mean, it's not expensive to make unless you want to go the professional road and spend, what, $1,000 for just the same parts, more or less. I mean, they're a little nicer. They clamp around the thing, but you don't need it when you're home brewing. And I highly recommend making pin boards for things once you have a more solid design. I think also in here, if I go to Frozen, I have pinboard views of Frozen, because I also made Frozen. Maybe I don't. I thought I did. Nope, I don't. I thought I did. I did take pictures. They're not as organized as Haunter Cruise in that one. So that's the playfield design. Playfield is only one part of creating a pinball, though, right? You have rules you need to create. You have artwork you need to create. Audio you need to create. For rules, you can go as simple as what I'm going to show you in a second, which is just a little text pad or text file. Yeah, design docs rules. Maybe I call it story. Yeah. So I called it story in this. It's just a simple text document that defines what things are, what things need to be. In here, I have little chevrons and things to say what I've done, what I haven't done. And this is a little out of date with what I'm doing. I really need to clean it up. Where you click, so I have the concept of what the skill shot is. Sorry, God's talking right now. It's making a little difficult to think. But man, I was 343. Damn. So with Haunted Cruise, I wanted there to be a concrete story from I I'm not going to speak over this. Here, how about you guys look at another pretty picture? Like here, we'll look at this pretty picture while we're doing it. It's a wonderful post. Figuring out post colors. I'm very important. Hell, if you want to get fancy, the ones in the front can be orange, the ones in the back can be red. Then your BOM gets really out of proportion. All right. Where were we? Story. Haunted Cruise, from the very beginning, I wanted it to have an in-depth story. You're not necessarily going to get it in the game, which is why I added that little intro story in attract mode, so you kind of get an idea what it is. But there's a lot of characters in here that you just won't know about because I haven't represented them very well, such as the Grand Allure. That's the ship that you're on. Where is that in the game? It's not in the game yet, but the ship still has a story and still is a character. The Fiendish Ghosts. Well, they're there. They're the pranking spirits, the magnets that kind of throw you around. They kind of screw you up. No, I'm sorry. Those are the mischievous ghosts. The Fiendish Ghosts are ones that are trying to kill your ball. I haven't added them in yet. It's planned in the future. Trapped ghosts are in there. That's the Lost Boy, the Lonely Dog, the Torn Family, and the Sailors. You, the player, you're obviously, hopefully, you're there. If not, maybe you've had too much to drink. The relics are all in there. Now, the relics aren't working the way they're supposed to right now because I've redesigned how all the story modes work. Originally, it was going to be in sequence. Yeah, you did these, then these, then these, and that got very boring when you played it a lot of times. And so the very first show I brought it to, and 2 years ago, I very quickly changed it so you would get a random selection of modes to start. It would be a small subset, but it would still be random, so it would be more interesting if you went back and play. You wasn't always, I'm playing the study again, No, it always does start with the door because 20 minutes, everybody, 20 minutes. Maybe I should go. I started like crap. All right. So yeah, the story modes I changed it so it'd be a little more random when you start each game. You always start off with the door mode at the very beginning. It's a very obvious thing to hit. And it makes sense because you're going deeper into the ship, so that's why the doors are there. And it's a very, very nice looking effect. So like you hit the doors and they go boom. So that's kind of your wow. Oh, it's same with the bell. Like you hit the bell and it goes ding, 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 ding. It's very good for first time people going up and just monkey slapping like, oh man, this is cool. So that's there, but everything else is different. So you might not get the relics you're supposed to in a game mode or in a game session because things shift around and they're hard coded right now. But the idea is you need 3 different relics, MacGuffins, whatever you want to call them, to get into the spirit world to then defeat the evil spirits who control the ship to then get off the ship. And no, I have not added the spirit world in yet because, well, I haven't just added yet. Talk about collecting relics, what you have to shoot behind, which doesn't always matter now. And then these are all the different game modes. Knock 3 times is the door. Knock 3 times, get the reference. Vortex is the vortex. It just looks cool with particle effects and things. The candelabras, or the 3 candelabras, is now known as the study because you're in a study. If you light the candelabras, they go around. It opens a door on the side, and you shoot through the door. The Banshee is that weird polygon thing that you're seeing right now. It's a very temporary programmer art thing, but it works. Then Orbs of Light I have. Yeah, it's an orb you have to hit that's moving around. Blood Eyes I have, which is all the little red eyes that kind of appear. You need to hit them. And everything down here I haven't added yet. Inverted Hallway, Science of a Lifetime, Gallery of Fools. Those are all just little boxes that bounce right now, which you kind of can get to, but they're just placeholders just to allow you to progress right now that I can then just change later on. Yeah, so then the Spirit Realm entry, which is going to be like this weird portal thing. Think like NetherRealm portal from Minecraft type of thing. You're super interesting to see. And then the Farewell, the end mode. All the shops awards are kind of defined in here. Again, they've changed a little bit through playtest. I haven't updated this as much. Prices for everything. The breakdown of everything, because the shop has 7 different things that it will randomly choose some in certain circumstances if you already have something or you don't have something. Not all of these are implemented. They're in, but they're not all implemented yet. The ghost modes are all implemented. The Lost Boy, Lonely Dog, Torn Family, and Shipwreck Sailors, they're all in. They don't have all their callouts yet, of course. The Torn Family, I want the wife to, every time you make a shot, talk about like their trip and their family member that you're doing before you learn what their demise was at the very end. And it'll be a very interesting one. That has the most story so far in it. But I haven't recorded any of those lines yet. Okay, pranking ghosts hit the target and it makes the magnets go around for a while. Magnets won't activate if the lonely dog is there because that's a target you need to hit. That's all implemented. These little like carrots mean it's implemented. The Ghost Sisters multi-ball. That's the 2-ball multi-ball that you can get by hitting those 2 little targets at the bottom. Spirit multi-ball. Only half implemented, but you can get to it. It looks super janky, so give it a try. You can stack all multi-balls. All regular multi-balls. You can't stack them with wizard multi-balls or special multi-balls. But you can potentially stack 4 multi-balls together, I believe, in this. If you shoot like 196 shots perfectly. Yeah, this is for the Keith Elwins of the world. Your hurry-ups, this is all in there. Hurry-up can bring you to a special fast scoring mode, I believe this is. Yeah, it's a fast scoring, runaway scoring. If you can make it through all of it, run, hurry, and escape. Very difficult to do. But I have seen someone do it. Grand Ballroom Multi-Ball has also been implemented. Kinda. It's there. Again, it's a little jank. But once you complete all the ghost modes, you can then go through that same little scoop in the center. And just like the original game, way back when, where the doors would open up and you would follow the spirits in. Well, now you have the Grand Ballroom where on the upper table, it has the Piano Man in the back playing, and it has ghosts all dancing around, aka Haunted Mansion from a mouse location. Diamond multi-ball. This is one of the ones you can stack. You have to collect all the diamond elements from the random awards. They happen every 3 awards. You get a diamond element. When the inventory was available, which currently it isn't, you could actually see what you've completed, what you haven't. I designed it just like Zelda Ocarina of Time that kind of rotates around where you can see all the different panels. I need to get that working again. Speaking of the random award, it's the Hidden Crevice. Sometimes an evil ghost is found. Those are the evil ghosts that I was talking about that aren't implemented yet. Hey, guess what? It doesn't have a chevron. It's not implemented yet. Same with the good ghosts. It doesn't have a chevron. It's not implemented yet. But someday it will. The specters are the 2 in lanes. You see this like flaming skull going across, similar to like the Doom Hell Demon things. And you can bank those up. You can collect them with different awards. This is all in. This all works. Extra ball is really nice when you get it and you don't realize you had 5 specters. I don't have a tilt mechanism in there right now, but these have been added. So this is something I'm really proud of, actually. That game changes the rules based on how many warnings you have. If you have 1 warning, your twin sisters give you 3 multi-ball or 3-ball multi-ball. If you have 2 warnings, then your spirit multi-ball gives you ×2 scoring. So if you stack those up, you can get 4 balls going with ×2 scoring and everything lit. But you have 2 warnings, so you're like you're really on your toes. Then after the multi-balls go down, if you have enough points, you can go to the shop and you can get rid of all your warnings. Or if you don't want to shake the machine to get a warning, you can go to the shop and buy a warning. Yep. So that's in there. I'm going to add more modifiers with that, but it's really cool when I had the plumb bob in there, and all of a sudden you got 3 balls, and you're like, why did it do that? Oh, I got a warning. Yeah. it was a lot of risk reward that added to that. End of ball multipliers just kind of describes how those work. That's related to the jets on the bottom and the bell on top, how there's some interaction there. I don't have all the effects. I would like more things kind of coming out of the jets into the bell, charging the bell up. There's 2 spheres on there. 1 sphere means you get +1 end of ball if you hit it. If 2 spheres lit, brings you to the next power of 2, so 4, 8, 16. So it's worth hitting the jets a lot. If you get ×2 jets and ×2 playfield, it only takes like 2 hits on the jets to light a sphere. So you can really crank it up really, really quick. But you need to buy those things from the store. So again, do you want to spend that, or do you want to save it up for a tilt warning type of thing or something else? End of ball bonuses, just how that works, and all the things that go towards it. I like random things that you hit going towards end of ball bonuses, like the bell, the balcony, specters, relics, like ghost orbs, all those things, and they have different tiers based on how difficult it is. But if you just keep hitting the balcony shot, the upper ramp over and over and over and over and over again, you can do pretty good because that ramp goes up 200,000 every shot. So you can easily get millions of points on that ramp shot if you hit it a bunch. Plus, it goes to your end of ball bonus. Wizard mode, I don't know if that's correct, but it's there. It's written. Then this is kind of what's going to happen at the end. Again, I don't know if that's correct. If you're late at night, you type something there just so it's there when you think about it. So this is kind of the very rough, informal type of storyboard or type of rules doc that I made. Now I'm making a bit more formal game development docs, which don't use TextPad or Notepad. Again, I think I can show you the Frozen one, which is a little more formal. It might, again, be out of date. I'm not going to show you some of the other ones that I have, but in design, rule sheet question mark? Yeah, so now I have a front page, I have a table of well, I don't have a table of contents. In one version, I have a table of contents. It's all very clearly defined and very, very pretty on this thing. And I'm just making it more and more formal as time goes on. Now, can you create rules before you have a playfield? Anyone out there? Yes? Who else says yes? Who says no? Yes? Yeah? Yeah, of course. Yeah. if you have a story in mind, you're going to have a theme and story, then you can start coming up with rules. And in my opinion, I encourage that. You don't know what you're going to need on the playfield if you don't have rules, right? They don't need to be fully defined, but you just kind of need to know. Oh, haunted cruise. Hey, I want I want a piano multi-ball type of thing. Well, I need a piano there somewhere. Or hey, it'd be cool if you went on the deck and shot into a bar area. Well, I need a deck somewhere, the type of thing. So yeah, of course. You really should make your rules first. And with Haunted Cruise, I made rules first. A lot of the other tables I do, I make rules first. At least a rough 1 or 2 page idea, story and rules, and then from there I design the table. And oftentimes, as the table is being designed, I realize, oh, it would be cool if, and then I make a change. Right. So just make your designs and then figure out how they're going to be laid out. Right. Any questions? I guess I have 9 minutes left on the development process of Haunted Cruise. Anything I left out, or any other? Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so in Haunted Cruise, like on the game, you showed it really early on when you were like basically just hooking voltage to coils and,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
switches and stuff.
Don't do that.
All right, hold on. Don't wait a sec for this.
Yeah.
So
Speak louder. I can't hear you.
okay, so in this case here, did you have this whole rules doc then?
No.
'Cause that seemed like it was early in the process.
Yeah. So with Haunted Cruise, I knew I wanted a cruise ship, and I knew I wanted it to look like a cruise ship and have ghosts. That's as far as I was in that point. And if you remember, way back then in 2008, 2009, when I first made that, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Just like a lot of people starting out, I didn't even know pinball very well. I just learned like pinball rules for a job I had like a year before. So I was really kind of shooting at the hip, like, hey, it'd be cool if, like, this would look interesting if, or why not have that? I mean, I didn't know any better.
So like you were learning the process of making pinball,
Yeah.
and then learning you needed the rules, and it got kind of volleyed back and forth. So.
Yeah, a little bit. So the difference with me and a bunch of other people starting is I'm a game developer by profession. I've been writing games for 17 years, something like that now, with Nintendo DS, PS3, and mobile lately. So I already had that background. And one of the jobs I had was to make a PS3 pinball game. And that's how I learned about pinball. We went to the local Monster Mini Golf. They had a Simpsons Pinball Party, the easiest game to learn. And so I learned how to play it. And then I think a few months later, they swapped it out with version 0 of Iron Man. And I'm like, what the hell is this crap? This is boring. Before anything was implemented, right? So, yeah, I learned how to make rules the Simpsons Pinball Party way, which isn't necessarily the best way to learn how to make rules, but I had to for a job. So if you guys look up Pinballistic for PS3, it's a heads-up 1-versus-1 pinball thing. A bunch of those tables are mine, and a bunch of the rules on those tables I helped define, and a couple of the tables I actually made myself on that before I even did this stuff. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Either I did a good job or I'm really boring. So, great. All right.